Good evening and welcome back. My name is James Moppin, and welcome back to my podcast where I address how reaching your goals as a musician is the same as reaching your goals in the gym and vice versa. So, a couple of topics I want to talk about today that apply to both worlds are the difference between setbacks and failure and how to recover as well as refocus. So, in every goal you set or in every journey you start, there's obviously going to be challenges, like otherwise anybody could do it, right? So, especially when it comes to fitness, a lot of people will experience setbacks as well as failures. The problem is, not a lot of people know how to distinguish the two. So, the same principle applies to being a musician. So, one thing that is common about these two is a lot of people tend to dwell on them. If they experience a setback, especially when it comes out of nowhere, or if they believe they failed their journey, they failed whatever progress they've made towards working to their goal, they just dwell on it. They will really take it to heart, and it can even impact some people morally when they think that it's the end of the road, when they think it's too tough that they can't do it anymore, when it's harder the next day compared to what it was the first day. They tend to dwell on it, and they will take it morally. They will begin to think that they are not capable of reaching that goal. They will believe they are not capable of making improvements, and overall, they will believe that they are just not capable of reaching their goal. So, one example, we'll start with the gym. One example for a setback that somebody will experience is perhaps they break their diet. They get so caught up in this whole focus that they have to diet 6 days out of the week, then their cheat day is on the 7th day. They get into this routine that they have to go to the gym every single day, otherwise it's not going to work. And then the moment something comes up, the moment that they feel too tired and they don't go, it will seem like a good decision in the moment, but afterwards, when they don't go to the gym is closed. Once they realize they didn't eat their healthy meals that they were supposed to eat today, they give up and they dwell on it. They will completely dwell on the fact that they broke this routine that they were in before. They will not look at it as a learning opportunity as they should, and they will just continue to dwell and mourn over it, and they will think that they are a failure. So one analogy that I've always heard, this is something that I've heard from all the old school gym goers. I used to go to an old school Arnold Iron gym back in Colorado Springs. And one thing I always hear a lot of power lifters talking about, a lot of people who are on their diets, they will talk about how a setback is just a bump in the road. Failure is the start of a new road. So when it comes to being a musician, especially for instrumentalists, practice is everything. Everybody has to practice. There's not a successful musician out there who doesn't practice. And one of the most common setbacks, anyway, for a musician is they will not practice, or they will go a few days without practicing just because they were tired or because they just didn't have the motivation. And by the time something comes around where they have to perform, they will dwell on the fact that they did not practice, and they will, in general, believe that they will fail their performance. So a lot of musicians will dwell on the fact that they haven't practiced, and they will make it a habit. They will believe that, they just aren't capable of practicing as much as they should, and they will get into a cycle of believing that not practicing is okay, or convincing themselves not to practice in the moment, and then later deciding, they should have practiced, and being all upset about it. They will make sure that they want to go the next day and practice, and as soon as the time comes, they don't. They do the exact same thing and fall into the cycle. And a few days later, they do decide to practice, and when they practice, they overdo it. They will practice, and then once they get to that practice session, they've been practicing way more than they would on an average day, trying to make up what they missed over the past few days. And by the end of that practice session, their performance level still isn't as good as they want it to be. And they will just continue to let themselves dwell over the fact that they didn't practice and not really even take action or take responsibility for the fact that they decide not to practice. So, biggest thing I want to talk about is how to use your failures as motivation to refocus and get back on track. When you're in the gym and you've broken your diet, you've haven't gone to the gym in a few days, you're pretty sure that you're behind on your goal. You think you're beginning to question your goal. You're beginning to question whether it's really worth it. One thing that people will not do is they will not learn from their failure. They will believe that they failed and they won't use it to create something out of it. So now that they believe they are off course and believe that their goal is becoming unreachable, the trick is to let your failures actually haunt you. For me, whenever I was training for a powerlifting competition and I decided not to do deadlifts on a day that I thought I should, or maybe there was a time where I had to take a week off from the gym for family matters. Maybe I had to work overtime because I couldn't make my own ends meet. I would let it haunt me. As much as I didn't want to, as much as I really hated the fact that I had the thought in my head that I failed, I would use that as my own motivation. Because let's say everybody wants to get stronger. Maybe there's somebody who wants to become a bodybuilder and he knows he needs to cut weight. He needs to pack on muscle. Trick is, once they let these failures come along, they don't add them to their reasons to be motivated. They will not reconsider their goal. They will continue to dwell on the fact that they believe they are off course, and they overall fail because they refuse to learn from it. Whenever you are on the path to reach a goal and you believe that you have failed, for me anyway, what I always do is I make sure that the failure I just had becomes my new reason to be motivated and to want to reach my goal. I will completely block out what happened or why I started in the first place, and I will let this reason that I failed be my new motivation. For musicians, an example could be how you don't practice, or let's just say you give a bad performance. You give this bad performance, or you don't believe you've practiced enough, and you feel like overall your musicianship is started to take a hit. The biggest thing you got to do is just let that bad performance or let that missed week of practicing be your new motivation to start working towards your goal once again. So, like I said, the difference between a setback is literally just nothing but a bump in the road. It's a time where when you're working towards your goal, you feel like it gets hard all of a sudden, but you push through and you continue to work for your goal no matter how hard it is. Failure is when that same bump in the road comes along and then you decide to let it be the end of the road. All of a sudden it gets hard and then you claim it becomes too hard. The key to being able to push through the hard times and get to your goal comes with being able to use your failures as your new motivation to continue. Anyway, thank you so much. I am James Maupin, signing off.